The desert runway stretched out beneath the glow of dawn, and the X-59 stood at its edge like a silver blade ready to carve the air, while technicians hurried about with measured steps and murmured voices. Yet their work was not truly unseen, for, high above the thin veil of blue that shielded Earth from the dark, there were eyes unblinking, ancient eyes watching from the cold stillness of orbit, their vessels cloaked in a skin of bending light that made them invisible to human detection. The aliens had waited for centuries, measuring the slow rise of human invention, noting each stumble and each triumph, and now their attention fixed on this strange new aircraft that promised to travel faster than sound without shattering windows. Without rattling bones, the X-59 to them was more than an experiment. It was a signal that Earth's children were reaching once more for the impossible. Inside the control center, rows of monitors tracked every heartbeat of the craft, while engineers whispered about airflow stability and the dream of quiet supersonic travel. Yet even as they focused on their data, they felt a strange tension in the air, like being observed by unseen witnesses. And indeed, that feeling was no illusion for the alien. Vessels glided silently just beyond the edge of radar, their crews studying the lines of the X-59, the way its nose stretched long and slender, the way its wings were angled, not for war, but for balance. The aliens remembered their own first experiments, with such designs thousands of years before, and they whispered across their own channels that humanity was stepping into the echo of their path. They debated quietly whether to intervene, to guide, or to test, if humans could cross this threshold. Alone for each species was judged not by words, but by how it shaped its wings against the skies. The pilot climbed into the cockpit, heart pounding as the ground crew sealed the canopy, and the sun glinted off the glass visor like a beacon in the desert. Air engines rumbled alive, and the craft began to roll forward, wheels humming on the runway. The Earth itself seemed to tremble, as if aware of what was about to unfold in the skies above. Alien eyes widened, for they sensed not merely a test, but a declaration of intent that humans were ready to walk paths they had been denied for centuries. The pilot did not know it, but as the X-59 gained speed and the control tower crackled with reports, a silent transmission rippled through the stars, carrying news to distant watchers. The humans are moving again. The humans are daring again. The humans are waking. The pilot gripped the controls tighter, unaware that a galactic council of ancient beings was now shifting in their seats, pondering what would come next. The nose of the craft lifted, and the X-59 left the ground, soaring smooth and steady into the wide morning sky. Each breath of the pilot filled with awe as the Earth dropped away, and the horizon stretched endless like a promise. The aliens followed in perfect silence, their ships gliding in parallel, unseen yet present. Their hearts filled with something they had not felt in countless ages, a spark of respect, perhaps even hope for. Here was a species, small, fragile, bound to a single world, yet daring to break the silence of the skies. The X-59 roared higher toward the threshold where air thins and speed becomes fury, its shape slicing without thunder, without shatter, a quiet sonic leap. And in that quietness, the aliens heard something greater than sound, the heartbeat of humanity refusing to stay small, refusing to be caged. And as the craft reached its mark, they turned their eyes to one another and agreed in silence that Earth would soon be invited to a larger sky. The desert winds stirred as the X-59 leveled out in its climb, and the thin veil of clouds split like curtains before its nose. The pilot's hands steady, though inside the pulse of anticipation surged faster than the craft itself from the ground. The crew shouted readings into microphones, their voices caught between science and prayer, every number flashing green, a miracle in motion. But what no human voice could reach was the council of alien vessels drifting above their invisible fleet, woven of light and silence, watching every second with a reverence that Earth would not yet believe they remembered, when their own ancestors first quieted the skies. The breaking of sound without shatter had once marked the rise of their civilizations. To them, the X-59 was not merely an airplane, It was a key, the beginning of a language that spoke without words, saying we can now touch the skies with harmony, not violence, and this language mattered more to the galaxy than Earth could imagine beneath. The surface of the moon, where dust has lain untouched for eons, another presence stirred for signals sent by the observing vessels, had reached vaults hidden deep within craters, and with that pulse of information, ancient machines awoke groaning. In silence, their gears never meant for human eyes, but for guardianship of thresholds. When one species touched the point of silent supersonic mastery, the vaults began recording and sending back not warnings, but invitations. And across the black, Gulf stars blinked awake one by one, each belonging to civilizations, long thought slumbering, but now alerted that Earth was stepping forward. The pilot in the X-59 could not know that with every meter of smooth, quiet flight he was echoing across millions of minds, and yet in his chest he felt the weight of history, though he thought it only pride in his craft and his team, while in truth it was the gaze of countless watchers pressing upon him like the weight of suns far from Earth in the dark halls of the Galactic Council. The message had already arrived. Screens of living crystal shone with the image of a silver craft carving the desert sky, a craft that dared to break sound without thunder, and the gathered voices debated the meaning of this act. Some argued that humanity was too raw, too fractured, too bound by war and greed. Others insisted that to reach this stage was proof of resilience, of creativity that should not be smothered. A vote began not in words, but in pulses of light, each alien species casting its thought into the great chamber as the human pilot tested banking turns and steady climbs, unaware that he had already ignited a debate that stretched across half the galaxy. The council weighed whether Earth should be hidden from or welcomed into the starborn community, whether the X-59 was simply an aircraft or the first wingbeat of a new civilization. And though the pilot knew nothing, he flew as though the whole world was on his shoulders, which indeed it was. The X-59 descended smooth as a hawk, returning to its perch wheels, touching the desert runway with a hiss of heat and smoke. Cheers erupted from the human engineers, their voices echoing across the control center as if the world had just been reborn. And above, in the still sky, the cloaked vessels drifted backward, vanishing like mist. Yet their decision had been made. Earth would be tested further, not with warships or invasions, but with questions, subtle invitations hidden within the fabric of signals and stars. The aliens whispered to one another that humanity had earned the right to climb higher, that the skies had been broken, not with noise but with grace. And so the X-59, though to human eyes a simple prototype, had already become legend beyond Earth. It had already written humanity's name into the record of civilizations that dared and survived. And as the pilot climbed down to touch solid ground again, he felt a strange shiver run through him, as if unseen eyes had blessed him, though he would never know just how many.